If you have any questions, please use your voice. I probably will not be looking at the chat for the next 15 minutes, maybe glancing once in a while, but I'm going to try to focus on getting further in my drawing here. All right, so now that I've got all the muscles drawn in there, what I really want to do is I don't have to look at the muscles or the skull or anything anymore. All I really need is this as a reference image. I need my original reference image, and I'm going to start to use what I have on here and start blending and erasing to get the actual skin and the details and eyebrows and all of the surface drawn in, and then of course her nose, because right now we only have the skull opening of the socket of the nose and the muscles around it. So we're going to have to do that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take my blending stump and I'm going to just start blending. And we're going to see what we get with the blending. There's a lot of charcoal on here already. So we're going to use it. I don't want to lose certain things. Like I probably will go in the direction of the muscles and maybe even blend in the direction of the muscles so that I don't lose, like this curve here is actually kind of where her eyebrow would sit, right on top of that edge. So I don't want to lose that yet. Eventually I will get rid of it, but it's sort of a guide for me right now as to where to put the eyebrow and the eye and the eyelid and the cheekbone and all that stuff. We still need that information. And you can see how quickly I did that. If you want to get a really good blend, you go one direction, and then you take your blending stump and you go the other direction. And that will help kind of get rid of some of the muscle lines. And this is really, you're kind of like grinding the charcoal into the paper when you do it like that, getting rid of your original texture. I'm holding it like this. I'm pinching pretty good, and the tip of it is actually stuck right here in between my fingers, and it acts as kind of a grip so I can push harder on it and blend a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to kind of smooth in that. I'm going to just go right over the nose. I'm just going to smooth it all in. But before I get too far, I might want to do a little bit of like highlight definition so I don't lose stuff. So I see that she's got a highlight. The light source is almost like facing her and in the middle of her face, right? She's got all of her highlights down the center. So we're going to put those in by taking our eraser and holding this drawing down. If you don't want to smear it, you can put another piece of paper over top and hold it like that. So I'm going in circles now, and this is the subtractive part. I'm really kind of just pulling that charcoal off, and this is the part that's going to make our drawing look three-dimensional. And then I'll do some blending, right? Because it's not a hard line. It's sort of like a fade. And then that would sort of follow that kind of the highlight or the tip of her eyebrows. Kind of sits right on the ridge there. And here's a tip. If your highlights need to be pretty bright in order for your face to look three-dimensional. So don't be afraid to really dig in and erase. Okay, so now we've got sort of a highlight on her forehead. Any questions so far? So I'm going to sort of sketch in where I think that eyebrow is. There's the eye. I'm looking at my reference image. There's the eyelid, and then the top of her eyebrow is kind of right there, and it sort of curves up and it kind of loops around like that. And then it has a shape to it up here, like that. Okay, so if I get that kind of drawn in, it seems dark right now, but we'll blend it. And we're going to add a higher contrast layer later to the rest of it, okay? And then I'm going to pay attention to where the highlights are. I think I need to drop that highlight down and then have it just be right on the ridge of her eyebrow. And you can kind of go back and forth, you know, like, oh, I erased too much. Well, I can blend it back in. It's kind of like sculpting with charcoal. All right, and I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep blending, trying not to lose my details. And you'll find that you have plenty of charcoal on your paper already. You're not going to need probably to add any more, unless you accidentally take too much away at some point. I'm going to add some value to her eyes. Going to leave that little, you know, every eye, when you take a photo of it, every eye is going to have that little light reflection in it. And that's kind of what makes the eye look alive. So don't lose that. Okay, I'm going to get the other eyebrow drawn in. She's got a little highlight right here. So when I'm working on something that's this complicated, I just kind of go from one section to the next. Work on this eye, then I work on this eye, then I work on the eyebrow, and then I stand back once in a while and I really look at what I'm doing and make sure that I'm not completely off track. And then I just keep going. If you want to get rid of your eraser marks, you want to blow on it instead of sweeping on it, because if you sweep it, you're going to smudge it. And you can tell, like, the shape of the eyebrow goes exactly along with the muscles that you just drew in that socket. Isn't that kind of neat? So these are the little things you're going to learn just by drawing the muscles. Like, where does that eyebrow go? And how is it shaped? And that's why everybody's eyebrows are shaped differently. That and threading. Some of you might not know what that means, but threading is the type of eyebrow sculpting that you can go get done, where they take two threads, and I've had it done before, just from a friend that has a business of threading, and it's quick, but it's a little bit painful. They put like kind of lay the two threads where they want to kind of rip the hair out, and then they pull it tight, they twist it, and they rip it out. It's just a form of grooming that you could, if you wanted your eyebrows to look more tweezed. I can even use the side of my eraser to kind of blend. Back and forth, back and forth. Blending stump, charcoal, eraser. Blending stump, charcoal, eraser. Till I get it right. Okay, so, you know, I've got a lot of work to do on the eyes, but I feel like I got the eyebrows in sort of the right place. I might move them around a little bit once I get the rest in there. So I'm going to keep blending. I'm not going to work on the whole face today. I'll probably maybe get down, you know, get the blending done and like general outlines of things, and then I'll show you some detail work later. I want to get her nose drawn in right now. Sort of amazing. I think I'm going to take a photo of it like halfway, right? With the half the muscles and half the skin. So you can kind of see it sort of transform as you work on it. Okay. So the nose is not something I've even tried to draw yet on this drawing. So I'm going to have to start from scratch with the nose and get the rest of this blended. So we know her cheekbones are right here. We know that because we drew the skull. And we know exactly where that jaw cheekbone is. It's right there. Kind of drew her lips in already, but we need to make sure they're in the right place. Okay, so we're going to draw her nose. First thing I'm going to do is pull out some highlights. So there's a nice highlight right down the middle. And then right on the tip of the nose, it kind of gets rounder. And then the sides of the nose, it's kind of lighter here. So it catches a little bit of that highlight. And then she's got some highlights right under her eyes here, kind of like on the flat part of her cheek. Kind of comes right up against the nose, and then it sort of comes down like that. I can fine-tune these later. These are just kind of helping me with placing the nose in the right place and making sure that things are in the right place. And I'm really looking for shapes, like what is the shape of that highlight? Kind of looking back and forth and paying attention to that will help you. And then it's sort of a highlight right above her lip here, and right up next to her eye. Okay, so just by putting the highlight in, all of a sudden I have more of the nose. I haven't even drawn anything in there yet. It's just erasing. So now I can kind of pay attention to, and I want to double check, make sure I have the right length before I draw the nose. So the good way to do that is that you want to measure the eye, the width of the eye. I usually use like a pencil or something, or your blending stump's good. And then I actually come here first and measure the length of your reference image, and then count, like how many eye widths are there from the bottom of her nose to maybe the top of the eyebrow. 1, 2, like I'd say 2 1/4. So then I come here and I measure this eye, and I go from the bottom, the top of the eyebrow, right? 1, 2 1/4. See, I eyeballed it correctly. Felt like it was a little bit too high, but I think if I just put a little tip right here, it'll be perfect. So I always start kind of with the bottom side of the nose. There's a line here, and then you want to sweep up, and then there's a nostril, and then the side of her nose right about here. And then what does that line up with? It helps sometimes to line that up with something else, like the side of her nose is lined up with the corner of her eye right there. And same for this side. Okay, so all of a sudden, just by adding a few lines, nostril lines, and the side of the nose lines, and adding highlight, you have a nose. Feeling like though her nose is longer, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, so I'm going to double check some measurements. Maybe it's just my angle. All right, so now that I've got that in, I'm going to take one more photo before I blend out the rest of the muscles. And I encourage you to continue to take photos along the way. The more photos you have, the more fun it is to kind of see your process. Okay. All right, I'm going to blend the rest of the muscles in. Work on the lips and maybe even the shape of the face and the chin. All right, so now we're going to pay attention to where the highlights are on her chin. There's just a little one right there. And a little bit kind of on the side of her mouth. Remember, the more value you could capture in a face, the more three-dimensional it's going to look. You don't want your face to look flat. You want your face to look like there's light and shadow on it. I think I could work on the lips more. I just kind of didn't do them quickly, but I remember that I just kind of drew them in over the teeth. And you're going to pay attention to too where the darker shadows are, right? And you can drop those in too, like the nostrils are going to be pretty dark because it's a hole, right? And there's a really deep shadow in that hole. So you want to take your charcoal and you want to pay attention to the full range of value, not just your medium tones, but your darker tones too. Of the shadows, like the eyelash line typically is a little darker, so you could drop a darker line in there, and that's really going to make the eyes pop, especially if she's got a little mascara on there. And then the crease between the eye and the eyelid, that has a deeper shadow in it. You can see right away, doesn't that eye look more realistic than this one? Because all I did was draw a dark line on the eyelash and the eyelid. That's all I did. And look how different it is from that one to this one. So those little things really make a big difference. Okay, so I think for right now I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to stop and help you guys with your drawings. There is a feedback section today. If you need feedback, I want you to pop your drawing in there and let me know, and I'm going to give you some feedback so you can carry on and feel good about what you're doing. Okay, so give me a second. I'm going to wash my fingers off so that I don't get charcoal on my computer, and I will come back and help you. I know, I know, Anya. You're not the first person that's had an issue with the sound of a blending stump, or like charcoal on the surface of a drawing. Sometimes it really grates on some ears. I'm used to it because I don't even hear it anymore. Okay. All right. Does anyone need any feedback? Actually, Harmony, I would like to see your progress. So I would love it if you would post your picture in the discussion, in the feedback thing.